Wow, this is way easier with a tripod. And speaking of tripods, it's time to do an inner driver on my 900. Stay tuned. Let's move some stuff out of the way here. Nice. Lost that ring. 19 millimeter. Important to put in the spacer. It goes in the suspension. As you can see, I forgot, so I have to jack this up. And the reason we do this is when we go to realign everything, it has to have a place to go. And by keeping the spring high and tight out of our way, it'll make reassembly that much easier. Here we go. All right, so first we'll take this brake caliper off so we can get this knuckle off without problem. So we'll take the little bolts that hold the caliper onto the carrier out. Caliper in there. Brake pads still look good. It's the joy of manual transmission. They never wear. All right, take the big caliper guide off here. Call this my magic Toyota wrench because when my wife had a Toyota, this wrench seemed to do everything on the car because it's got a 19, an 18, a 17, and a 14 on it. So these bolts back here are either a 17, an 18, or a 19. I've forgotten a lot. I might require a little more percussive therapy because it's 94 degrees out here in lovely Haverhill, and yeah, I am a fat man, so I'm sweating. Yeah. Happy sounds. Yeah, it's short work of that. We'll get these bolts cleaned up too. Alrighty, got a new little 10 mil action to get this guide pin off the rotor. Okay. Oh, sweaty, sweaty, sweaty. Yeah. Go. Rotor doesn't look terribly warped. I was definitely getting some vibration from the front end, and I believe my inner driver suspect, because when I put the clutch in, it doesn't do it anymore. Nice. Despite living next to the ocean a couple years ago, this thing isn't terribly rotten. So, all right, let's get that ABS sensor out. If I was smart, I put anti-seize on that when I put this together. Oh yeah. Looking out for future Carl. Look at that. ABS sensor out. Don't have to fight it over here. All right. Leave the shock absorber in place. We can take out our tie rod end is an 18. Wife called me and she's like, "Why are you doing that today? It's beautiful down here at the beach. It's gonna rain tomorrow." Well, SOC is just a few days away, so I need to get her done before I go. Make sure it works. Oh yeah. Always love fresh hardware. Yep. Drop my nut. Look at that. Look at this. The hardware. This is what taking care looks like. Because I am just yanking this hardware out like there's no tomorrow. And that spacer helps because it keeps all the pressure on the frame instead of the spring and this joint right here. So I'll just give this a little pry daddy. There you go. And we'll take that tie rod off, which is an 18. 18. Da-na-na-na. 'Cause I'm 18 mil. Pittsburgh green. Yeah, I'm glad we're just focused on what I'm doing down here because shit, I am sweating. It is not good on my face. If you want to see a sweaty fat man, stay tuned. So I'll probably focus it back on myself in a moment. We'll see. Okay, tie rod nut off. There you go. Knock that out. Get those lowers out. To our 17 mil. And get down in here. So on this side, the nut is on the sway bar. Oh, look at that. God. Just like a 900 should be. Just pulls right out. Just gotta pop that ball joint, the tie rod. So one end goes and forks under the boot, and then the other slides right in. And then you just give it a little whirly-durly here. Grab the 19. All right, give that a little. There we go. Pop that. Haha. I don't scream like M539. But imagine what it'd be like if I did, right? Okay. Now, I can push the drive shaft through the hub. I can try and get this part to release up here too. This might need a little percussive therapy. Dun dun, found my 4-pound sledgehammer. Bum bum. Time to bang some stuff together. Give it a little, oh yeah, there we go. One knuckle removed. Here. All right, so now down here is the boot on the drive shaft. So I'm just going to turn that back so that's top side up. You probably can't see it so well, but there you go. Yeah. And thankfully, also in my looking out for future Carl, I put a conventional clamp on there, so I can just take my 7mm and a little ratchet wrench here. Okay, and then I just come down here, take that little clamp off the boot, So, moment of truth. We're going to pull this drive shaft out and see what it looks like. Oh, yeah. Make sure. Wow, all the grease was gone. Wow, it's a miracle. This is even, all the needle bearings are still here, but this is what happens because you get that exhaust manifold right above the drive shafts. So that is one problem. Now let's see how the inner drivers feel. So that's the thing that we came here for. So I'm just going to very surgically, actually probably do my right hand so I don't mess up my nice watch. Oh yeah, these have a pronounced divot in the face of them. And that means they are worn and need to be replaced. So let's take a look at what a good inner driver looks like so we have a little bit more context. Told you I'm sweaty. Oh, I wasn't lying. Here is an inner driver that I just removed from a transmission out in my shed. Had 146,000 miles on it, but it came out of a 900S. So S, well, this is the part you don't want to lose. There's a little spring that goes in the end here. Don't lose that. So this came out of a 900S, so 140 horse version, not the however many Freedom units this thing makes thanks to Mike D tuning. But what you're looking for inside here is grooves on the inside of the driver. Now, this has none. This is completely smooth, feels good. The one that's in the car has a pronounced divot where those inner drivers have worn through. And because the drive shaft sits directly underneath the exhaust manifold, on a 900S it's not much of an issue because that manifold kind of goes down and out, but in a turbo, it goes right under it. And that turbo is making like 1100 degrees of heat every time you want to make fast boosty sounds. So that's how they get worn out. So I guess now we're going to go under the car and we're going to remove the old inner driver. We're going to hang on to the shims because that's what sets the backlash of the pinion. So the shims from the old will go onto this drive shaft right here. We got some fresh grease that we're going to put in it. Put it all back together and see how she drives.
A few moments later.
Okay, I've spared you the 4 of the 6 bolts that are nuts that have to come out of this thing. Look down in there. Can't really see real good and put a lot of light down there, but we are going to take the last 2 of those bolts out. Get ready to catch this thing when it comes out because it's spring loaded. Should have done this winter when it wasn't 91 degrees in my workshop. Live and learn. Okay. There's one more bolt. And I just got to grab that last one. It seems like it did something. Yes, it did. Okay, so now the driver has no fasteners left in it. I'll give it a nice little, oh, there we go. Oh yeah, oh gross. Just made a mess here. All right, so I need these shims because these are the ones that go to my transmission housing and not necessarily the driver itself. So I'm gonna take these, I'm gonna clean them up, make sure that no crap in between them, because we want these to be very precise. It's all of our pinion backlash and everything else, and the last thing we need is any incidents with that pinion. All right, so it looks like we got a thin guy, a thick guy, and we align it. There's alignments here, and then another one here. And you'll notice on the driver, here's the new one that we'll be using, right here, top. So there's a little divot in the back that corresponds. So we'll take and we'll line up this driver. Should be a witness mark on there. And it's going to be kind of a bear to put this back into position, get all these little guys to line up, but when they do, it'll be brilliant because it'll all go together nicely. So let's look at why we're replacing. So I don't know if you saw inside this guy, but this is clean and smooth, and there's no divots anywhere on the drive surface. Versus this guy, and I'm going to wrap this up because it's still got gear oil in it. There is a pronounced, right here. So right on the inside there, there's a divot, and you can't really see it on camera, but it's there all right. And this one has none of that. So this is a good driver to replace this driver with. Don't forget the pin in the spring. It goes in the end of that thing. It's a preload. You can't operate this without a preload. Okay, so I'm going to go jimmy this thing back in. I'm going to put a couple of bolts in it to get it to cinch down, because when it goes in, and I'm explaining this because I know I'm going to be having a hard time getting the camera under there. So this goes back into the transmission, but it's spring loaded on this pin. So that means that we need to be very methodical about how we tighten these down and make sure this goes in aligned properly so that we can put it all back together nicely. All right, I'm over here at my bench grinder with the bolts that hold this in. I'm going to clean this up so I can put some fresh anti-seize, or not anti-seize, sealant on it. The reason why yeah, that's looking a lot better. Now, the reason we do this is because there's oil that is actually in those holes. So, to prevent it from creeping out, what we'll do is we'll put a little red Loctite on these. So that way, future Carl, in like another 20 years, will have to struggle with these to get them out. But no oil will have crept past all of these threads and out and onto the ground where it doesn't belong. Okay, new driver's in. Now we just got to pack it with grease.
Lunch, Lady Doris. Have you got any grease?
Several hours later. It's done. It's fixed. I had some adventures with a wheel bearing that was not good. So I got a new wheel bearing and I proceeded to mess that up on installation. So I went and got another one. Got it right that time. I am sweaty and my shop is a disaster. So next video, 9.5 engine? 9.5 engine. We'll see you then.